Welcome to the Academic Writing Amplified podcast. On this podcast, we believe that the culture of academia needs to change radically. Women and non-binary people are revolutionizing academia within institutions that were not built for us. If you're ready to reject the culture of overwork, kick guilt and overwhelm to the curb, and amplify your voice to make a real impact on your field without breaking down or burning out, you're in the right place. With our team of experienced writing coaches as co-hosts, we'll share insights and talk to inspiring guests to bring you the practical strategies, systems, and mindset shifts you need to find time to write, publish work you love, and design your career on your terms. And it all starts with writing. Let's go. Hello, and welcome to the Academic Writing Amplified podcast. Today, I am recycling a podcast episode for you as part of our series about emotions and writing. So basically, I went through my back catalog of over 250 almost episodes of the podcast, and I identified some that were really about writing and emotions. And so I have those for you coming up for the next little while, because I wanted to make sure that in this series on writing and emotions, we get to all the good stuff. So I would love for you to recommend this podcast and this podcast series to someone who you think needs it. I hope that as you listen to these recycled episodes, that you feel inspiration. All right, have a great day. Enjoy this episode. How does your writing make you feel? When you think about writing, do you feel excited, happy, and encouraged? Or do you feel guilty, sad, and overwhelmed? You are never going to write and publish as much as you want to if you feel yucky about your writing. But feeling good about your writing doesn't just happen randomly or by accident. You have to create that positive relationship with your writing. I call this creating positive feedback loops. It means that when you write, you feel positive feelings, which make you want to write again in a super happy loop of unicorns and rainbows. I exaggerate, but you get what I mean. These positive feelings are created by you by implementing certain writing behaviors. So today we're talking about those writing behaviors and how you can actively create through actions that you take a positive relationship with your writing. So here's behavior number 1. Start with small wins. If you currently are not getting the amount of writing done that you want to, do not try to suddenly write for 8 hours a day or even 4 hours a day. In episode 2, I talked about the importance of writing with focus or finding your tiger time. Getting in 1 hour of focused writing per week consistently is the first small step. Then you can expand to 2 or 3 hours consistently. The idea is to set yourself up to win at writing. Create small goals, easy consistency, writing with focus so that the writing feels good. Be purposeful and gentle on yourself. If you haven't had a writing win in a long time, the best way to set yourself up for that is to find your tiger time. So go ahead back to episode 2 to figure out what that's about. If you haven't listened to episode 2, stop right now and go back there. And once you've figured out what your tiger time is, just start with 1 hour of writing a week during your tiger time. That's behavior number 1. Start with small wins. Behavior number 2 is reward yourself. Set up an easy to maintain reward system so that you are giving yourself positive feedback for small and large writing successes. This can be as simple as a literal gold star stuck to your calendar each day that you have a focused writing session. And again, you don't have to write every day, but seeing that gold star or whatever sticker you choose on your calendar will make you feel happy and successful. You should also, of course, have bigger rewards for reaching bigger goals, particularly for when you submit work for publication. You could go out to dinner, open a nice bottle of wine, or even just plan an at-home dance party in your living room. Something to mark the fact that you hit a big writing goal. Get into the habit of acknowledging your work by creating a positive experience for yourself. All right, behavior number 3 is adjust your mindset. So much of writing is about mindset. We all struggle with imposter syndrome, guilt, and overwhelm around writing at one time or another. There is so much pressure around writing and publishing in academia. The stakes are very high. You need to write to get the job, to keep the job, to get promotion, to get the grant. And all of this is dependent on your publication record. But at the same time, academia sets us up for failure at writing in a lot of different ways. Most of us aren't trained in writing as a practice, so we're making up systems and behaviors for writing as we go along, and these aren't always healthy systems. It's often kind of like a binge or bust system around writing, and we teach ourselves that that's the way to get things done, when really it's not. The systems we create often come from a place of pressure and fear, and they often don't feel very good and end up creating negative cycles of feedback between us and our writing. Instead, we must realize that writing is about caring for ourselves and our career. It's about getting your message out in the world where it can change your field and help people. So that's why this behavior number 3, which is adjust your mindset, is so important. And I'm going to really dig in now to some ways that we can change our mindset around writing and start to combat this kind of learned behavior that writing is stressful and problematic. So instead, I want you to switch out those thoughts about writing with these thoughts about writing. Writing is worth your time, reflection, and energy, perhaps more than any other academic undertaking. Your teaching is better when you feel good about your writing. Your research is better when you feel good about your writing, and you are just overall happier. So I want to ask you this question. Did academia make you forget how to write? Our relationship to writing develops when we're very young. The path is different for everyone, but many of us come to academia with at least some level of like for writing, and also some amount of writing skill. It would be really rare to get to a doctoral program without that minimal affinity for writing. Others of us, and this is where I fit, have had a lifelong love for writing in different ways. As a 6th grader, I wanted to be a writer. I wrote short stories featuring my classmates and dreamt of becoming a journalist, which was the only paid writing job my 12-year-old self could think of. I have always loved to write, and I've always considered myself a good writer. But our childhood reasons for writing, like storytelling and self-expression, can become corrupted by the demands of writing in academia. In academia, writing becomes about proving that you belong. And as each piece of writing is critiqued and criticized, we can start to believe that we don't actually belong. As we journey farther into academia, this rhetorical purpose of writing to prove yourself gets more and more high stakes. The real rhetorical purpose of the dissertation, for example, is not to report findings of original research, or we could just write academic articles for that. The real rhetorical purpose of the dissertation is to show that you deserve to become a colleague to your committee members. When writing is about proving yourself in a community that is actively trying to weed you out, where is the joy? Where is the intrinsic motivation, the need to express, to communicate? The tenure system really just screws this all up, right? The use of writing as a test of membership into the academic community continues throughout your academic journey, and it only gets worse. We jump onto the tenure track to become teacher researchers, though we are often untrained as teachers. This means an extra time burden as we prep and learn to work with students. So we're expected to earn tenure based mostly on publications, while the majority of our actual day-to-day work involves teaching and service. Writing becomes an invalid assessment of our worth to the academic community, and that feels pretty awful. The peer review process is also really about belonging. Not to say that peer review isn't important, because it really is. But it has happened to all of us that we've received unhelpful reviews or unexplained desk rejects. And when the stakes for publishing are so high, that can be devastating. So let's talk a little bit about how to unlearn and relearn writing. If you're in a spot where you no longer like writing or feel like a writer, where the academic writing process is just getting you down, it's time to unlearn what academia has been teaching you about you and your relationship to writing. This unlearning process is completely psychological. It is all about mindset. It involves mental work and commitment on your part, but it is so worth it. Here's why. If academia has made you forget how to write or why to write to the point that you just don't do it anymore, then the world has a problem. Because you have a unique perspective on your field that needs to get out there. So it's time to unlearn what academia has taught you about writing. So I'm going to give you an exercise to do to unlearn what academia has taught you about writing. So here's how you're going to do it. The first step is to identify your writing stories. So the first thing you're going to do is list out the stories you've been telling yourself about your writing. These are all the messages that come up when you sit down to think about your writing. For example, I don't know how to write. I have nothing new to say. This is going to get a desk reject. I'm a bad writer. I don't have time to write. I want you to write all those stories down. All those voices in your head telling you stories about you and your relationship to writing. Because all these are stories. They are just thoughts. And so we can unthink them. And that's what we will do in step 2, which is about flipping the script. Once you've written down all your writing stories, you're going to take each story and literally flip it on its head. So you're going to write exactly the opposite. So if you wrote, I don't know how to write, you're going to flip that to say, I know how to write. If you write, I have nothing new to say, then you're going to flip that to say, I have new and important things to say. Now, each time one of those old negative stories comes into your head, you need to repeat your new story. And that's where we come to step 3, which is reprogramming. We have thousands of thoughts per day. Changing our default thoughts takes diligence. Try writing your new writing stories on a paper and hanging it up on the wall, or setting an alarm on your phone and reading your new stories aloud to yourself several times per day. When your old stories come back, try shooing them away with a phrase like, not helpful. So every time it bubbles up and you think, I don't like writing, I'm not good at this, nobody's going to listen to me, I want you to just shoo those thoughts away with some kind of stock phrase like, not helpful, not helpful. If you have to say that phrase out loud, then do it, especially if you're in your office by yourself. Just talk to yourself. It'll work. Do whatever it takes to relearn that relationship to writing. If you were a writer as a kid, remember the reasons you wrote then. You had a story to tell. You had a message to communicate. You had something to say. Connect with that kiddo and honor her and her human need to communicate. You can find her again and believe her that you have something important to say. So let's recap the 3 behaviors that you are going to work to change and start in order to create a positive relationship to your writing. The first behavior is to start with small wins. Set yourself up with teeny tiny goals and feel really happy when you meet them. The second behavior is to reward yourself. So get a sticker chart, develop some kind of reward system for small everyday goals and also for big goals so that you see progress and you create this positivity with your writing. And the final behavior is to adjust your mindset. And we talked about reprogramming your writing stories because truly, academia can stamp you down. It can make you feel horrible about yourself. And this idea of writing and publishing as gatekeeping can just be overwhelming and awful. So we have to actively learn to reprogram our negative writing stories so that we can get our big message out into the world. All right, positive interactions with and feeling good about your writing must be actively created and fostered by you. Start taking action today to write and publish more and feel better about it. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time supporting yourself and your writing by listening to this episode. If you like what you heard today, the best way to say thank you is to hop on over to Apple iTunes and write an honest review. The more reviews, the more amazing academic women and non-binary people will find this podcast. So go write one now.